world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad and our ongoing investigation into films based on pulp and comic strip heroes. I'm John Campbell. My partners for this investigation, oh boy, will they fight each other or will they fight evil? It's unclear on a week-to-week basis. It's the Jones boys.
We'll fight evil.
Yeah.
John, you say that like you're busting our balls a little bit, but let me tell you something about me and Specs. We may have our differences. But even the mayor has to acknowledge we get the job done, right? We get it done.
I slam evil, but
I was
going
to say,
book.
you guys are we're slamming evil this week on the show.
Oh,
Is it time to slam some evil? Boy, is it 1996.
It's time to leave the mark of the Phantom
and
some Jaws.
John, I hope you don't mind, but this is going to be a backdoor pilot for our new podcast, and the viewers are probably already ahead of me on this one.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Pattering about Patrick McGowan. And
you know what I love is when you started, I wasn't sure which one. Is it going to be a Treat Williams thing? Is it going to be?
No.
Yeah. What is it? No, it's pattering about Patrick McGowan. All right.
Patrick,
No,
that
Robin,
drunken
backdoor pilot.
Irish Canadian. We got to examine that
the
guy more
backdoor
thoroughly.
to our podcast called man, I had it, and then you started doing that nonsense.
Zooming about Zane. Are we zooming
It was
about
going to
Zane?
be in Zane for Zane.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
But anyway,
You're talking to, as I've said before, because we've talked about it a couple times over on Meet the Monsters, and I've definitely talked about it a couple times over when I was doing the action shelf. I'm a card-carrying Zaniac, folks. I gotta say, that dude has never gotten the respect he deserves.
I will say it takes a Billy Zane to possibly transcend even a masterful Billy Zane reference in Zoolander.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, he not only yes ands in that cameo, but he brings the full Zane.
He knows that's it.
There are people that talk about his limitations. I was reading reviews and on Amazon and just kind of shaking my head with a lot of them. They kept talking about his limitations. I'm like, well, okay, maybe he is a stock type of character. Doesn't mean that he isn't at the highest of being that character. He's so good. I mean, you could let's talk about Harrison Ford, who's a absolutely amazing movie star, but has he ever really been different Harrison Ford?
Yeah,
not really.
A couple times, but those are the unsuccessful ones. Movies like Mosquito Coast, right? And people are like, we don't want this.
Yeah, but I think Billy Zane, I'm not saying he's Harrison Ford. I'm just saying that he does a character and does it very
I'm
well.
glad you brought this because that's something I remember hearing Gene Siskel talk about this back in the day, about Harrison Ford, that Tommy Lee Jones gets the Oscar for The Fugitive, but he was talking about don't discount that what Harrison Ford does is very hard, and not a lot of people could play Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. Yes, Jones is the showier, flashier part, and of course he's amazing. But, and I think that is true, I think we take for granted these guys who are solid leading men because they just go like, oh, he's just like that. And you're like, actually...
Well, I'm excited to, see what Robin has in the box, and I'm also excited to...
Robin is getting his mail as we're recording this.
It's always going to be Gwyneth Paltrow's
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Never not going to be that.
box. Actually, it probably is Gwyneth Paltrow, given the size and shape of that box. Anyway, so.
But yes, it is 1996, and this is The Phantom.
I'm excited to talk about this one. Like with
The
Shadow, I am very critical of, primarily because the deep love and knowledge I have of the character. I'm not as protective of the Phantom, but I know enough about him to sit there going like, they all got the assignment. I think I think it's a success. It's just that it's not what people wanted. I'm sorry.
Well, because this one, I was saying, there's sort of this is the end of this sort of 3-movie post-Batman. You get your Dick Tracy, the Shadow, the Phantom. The Phantom is the out-and-out bomb of the bunch. Like, this thing crashed and burned at the box office. $45 million budget, 17.3 worldwide. I mean, huge disaster for Paramount. Damn. Which is too bad, because I really like this movie.
Yeah, I mean, let
me tell you something about this movie. And I don't want to underline it, but was Bob Evans disappointed about the success of this movie?
I think he might have been.
You bet your ass he was.
Yeah.
It was a little kid stays in the picture for you guys.
There you go.
Yeah, a little bit. People talk about themselves in the third person are both charming and annoying.
By the way, Brendan, we've talked about that. You and I have I don't think we've done it on mic, but if you haven't seen The Offer, the Paramount Plus thing about the making of The Godfather, worth watching, if only for Matthew Good's performance as Robert Evans.
Matthew Good is
so good in that part.
I haven't seen it, but man,
he nails it.
Does he do a good job?
Oh my God.
Really good job. Really good. I think everybo's good in that, but he in particular.
Does Billy Zane show up as Brando in that one?
No.
Huge miss.
Because he's doing that right now, isn't he? The Brando biopic.
No, it's a making of the last.
That's right. It's specifically
Last Tango in
Paris. That's right. Yes, that's what it is.
Which is a film that has so many potential landmines in it.
Yep. I'm very curious.
I hope he brought his metal detector with him.
I'm very curious.
And I hope he left the butter at home.
I gotta say
leave the butter.
Look up the photos, folks, on that.
The butter at home.
The transformation is pretty good. Zane looks a lot like 70s era Brando.
Well, I think also Zane, his entire career, looks a lot like Brando. So it's like you sit there going, wow, Brando had really got cut. He could have been the Phantom. Anyway,
right. Yeah, Zane is the bastard love child of Brando and Val Kilmer's mouth.
Yeah.
Well, the Val Kilmer thing definitely on this one is because especially.
I think I set the specs off there.
By the way, that was
Viewers
something.
Can see
an
instant shade of green has been introduced to his complexion.
He's thinking of what horrific things happened on the set of The Island of Dr. Moreau between those two things.
Man, talk about a great documentary.
A documentary better than the film. But anyway, yes, The Phantom comes to us. And this is another one. Brendan, in a second, we'll get the history of the character. But this is another one that, like all of these, long road to the screen. We'll talk about the various directors and stuff who are attached. And who almost played the Phantom and such like that. But first, Brendan, take us back to one Lee Falk.
Oh, I will. So Lee Falk, the writer and cartoonist who launched and made, for the time, quite a splash and quite a bit of coin off Mandrake the Magician.
Yes.
And he was
Brennan.
Yeah.
Mandrake the Magician was the gay porn.
Yes, that's right. Mandrake the Magician is
that's the
one that I deleted off my hard drive.
I was going to say that's the one though you're more familiar with that version, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, most audiences are.
But for a comic strip artist, he was doing what basically a lot of them did, which was let's do pulpy things, but that kids can read, adults will also enjoy, because the adventure pulps that came up in the 20s and 30s were full of, like exotic lands. And it was always, of course, a white guy in an exotic land.
Yes.
He was friends to the natives.
Of course.
But at the same time, the natives are not the heroes. It's the white savior guy.
It was definitely a know your place. I'm cool with you guys, but know where the hierarchy of this thing
exactly.
sits.
My boon companion, my best friend, is one of them.
Yeah.
But I am the smarter, and I have all the power and all
the
that
Man
stuff.
Friday situation.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that trope, I know it's problematic. And actually, I read reviews of the Phantom that were hopping on it. I was like, yeah, but they were being true to the source material.
They were. I do think
they,
that's a thing that's going to keep the Phantom from probably, or at least not without.
And they swapped out a tribe of pygmies for the rope people in this movie. But anyway,
they try. They do their best to avoid that tricky material.
So essentially, Lee Falk already rolling, and then they're like, do something else, basically. And he's like, okay. And he started working on something about King Arthur and his knights, and they're like, no. And he's like, yeah, this isn't working.
I love,
besides,
do something else, not that.
Coming up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not that, though.
So King Features is like, what else you got? And then he came up with the Phantom. Which
is this bizarre mix of Tarzan and Batman to a degree, right?
Well, I mean, except for Batman doesn't exist yet. The thing the thing that makes the Phantom so important is the fact that he was essentially the archetype. He is the first, obviously, comic strip, because comics don't exist yet. In 36, he creates the Phantom, and the very first panel of the very first daily says, "For those who came in late."
Yep.
Which became a thing that this movie, and I mean, it's weird to get chills about something like that, but I totally did.
It's
because
great.
I'm like, God, the attention to detail.
I will say that my memory of seeing this movie was Patrick McGowan intoning it as you saw it.
Oh yeah,
but that's not true. Although, and that would be one of the flaws with this movie, is they really should have had him say it, because he would have knocked that one out of the park.
But there's another great Easter egg in this, which in the movie, which I'll get to. But essentially, the idea of an extremely fit person in a skin-tight costume and mask fighting crime, even though for a lot of it he goes back and forth. He world travels just like Mandrake, but most of it is set in Bengala, this fictional jungle island. And he fights pirates, but then blah, blah, blah. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the Phantom is still going. So that comic strip started in 1936. So people call him the first superhero, and ish.
There's a lot of people that they toss that out at, though.
Yeah, the skin-tight costume.
Excuse me, Brother Brennan. I will say the first superhero, and you need to go to your good book on this, was a man named Jesus Christ.
I think you need to go back to your good book. Things. All right.
If you read your good book, you'll see that a lot of the tropes, quote unquote, that you're talking about back in the New Testament. Thank you. I'll allow you to proceed, Brother Brennan.
Yeah. Jesus was famous for wearing a mask.
Yeah, great costume design on that guy. Great costume design.
The beard
also, speaking of iconography, the idea of putting on an eye mask and the pupils of your eyes being missing starts with the Phantom.
That I
Batman
did know,
used that. Wow. And literally, Falk said the idea came to him by looking at Greek and Roman statues, which famously didn't have... I mean, they had sort of carved in, but it was that these strong faces and no pupils, and he was like, oh, that's an awesome gimmick. What he wasn't aware of was when those statues were originally created, they were painted. So there were literally painted eyes and eyeballs in all those statues we see in the museums. Wow. But no, he didn't know that, so he uses that. And
it worked?
So you think Lee Falk failed art history? Is that what you're saying?
This guy was.
Is that what you're bringing out today?
Basically, Lee Falk, and the Falk estate can hear me when I say this. Totally. No, it's a joke.
The podcast just cuts off and there's no more. It's
very
just static.
Cool, and also the Phantom is a non-superhero, but he fits a lot of the things. He's got a secret identity and a cool gimmick, which is the ghost who walks, who's immortal, only because. Man, those walkers are very conveniently popping out suns.
Yeah.
And having the time to train them up before they die.
I was going to say, it's always contingent on the whole thing only works if they have a son who is old enough to take their place pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, the story is this guy who is a white character
Savior?
and descendant.
I was gonna say
He's the
Savior, yeah.
26th Phantom, because it starts back in the 16th century with the Walkers fighting the Singh Brotherhood, the pirates, and right up to Kit Walker, who's the current,
Kit
or at least
Walker.
was in the 30s, the current Phantom. He marries Diane Palmer eventually, and I mean, so basically,
Spoilers.
yeah, spoilers. This this is one of those things where to wrap up this part, as a guy, I mean, again, I like the Phantom a lot. I've read plenty. I'm not the hugest fan, but I like him a lot. Is this first? Is this a good movie, and is this a movie that's true to the source material? I'm going to say yes on both. It is, however, dated, and more than likely that's the problem that people had with it because they hewed so closely that only someone that was a Phantom fan would be able to cast aside, the ideas of, because people keep calling it like a Raiders knockoff, and you're like, guys, you don't understand this.
No.
This is where a lot of that comes
But that
from.
doesn't and we'll talk about this, and we've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it continuing forward.
John Carter. It's
The John Carter
syndrome.
thing where it's like, but it doesn't
Right.
matter. Movie fans don't think about that. I mean, and that's fine. Like, I mean, even if it's technically wrong, I get it, right? If you're just experiencing this stuff, yeah.
Because you encounter it in the 90s, you're sitting there going like, oh, this is a ripoff and not as good as Indiana Jones or Batman or something like that. And you go, oh, guys, this is the original. And they're like,
Except
we
this
don't
is
want that.
another
We
one,
like
though.
the-
Once again, just because of the kid I was, I saw this in the theater as a kid, and I loved it. I just was so taken with the design of this guy, the vibe of him, Billy Zane. I mean, this is where I became. I was like, why aren't there more Billy Zane vehicles after this? Because I didn't
At this
also
point,
understand it didn't do well as well.
Longtime viewers will do their first shot of John admits that he saw it when he was a child and thought it was the bee's knees.
Yes. Well, we're in
They'll do one shot for that.
these
We're
three
in the 90s.
This trilogy, this sort of pseudo trilogy that I'm saying of movies, is also just these were
Yes.
all very important movies in my childhood.
And this would also include Rocketeer. This would
Well,
also
Rocketeer,
include
which of course-
Markman.
Yeah. And one might argue the Saint as well. I was
Yeah.
thinking about this watching
Same
it
year
today.
as this.
I know last week that I thought Robert Evans produced The Shadow, and it was because at this point it felt like Robert Evans had bought up all of these pulpy characters rights, and and because he saw the writing on the wall with Batman, and was kind of trying to have his third act as a successful producer.
Yeah, but here's the thing on all of this. It's the Saint. Speaking of which, made the good choice? Question mark.
I like that movie.
They did not go period.
No.
So you put something in its proper period, especially if it's 30s pulps. People who aren't aware of the origins of these things will look at anything you put in that period that's an adventure romp.
Well,
sit there and compare it to Indiana Jones.
I think that's one of the things
fair.
we've talked about.
Yeah.
One of the things that really worked about Burton's Batman take was he had period elements, but it was this comic booky world where people had Tommy guns, but there were also computers, and that kind of, I think, obfuscated a lot of that stuff. Whereas the Phantom suffers the most from it simply because it's not only period, but we're in the jungles and there's tribes people and mystical objects. I mean, it does have a lot of Indiana Jonesy stuff in it that, whether it's true or not, yes, people are going, well, this is just Indiana Jones in a purple body.
By the way, a lot of complaints in the reviews on the flip side from people who were huge Phantom fans. A lot of the complaints they had were, where's all this supernatural crap coming from? Because really, that's introduced in this movie. That's not really... I mean,
that probably
in the comic
is Indiana
strips
Jones
that have run for
influence.
decades, he's run up against supernatural
Of course.
things.
Yeah, I mean, that's not...
But it's not intrinsic to him. It's him talking to the ghost of his dad and mystical, skulls that have a power that will destroy the universe.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's really not very Phantom, actually.
that definitely does probably actually was inspired by the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, here's the Easter egg, by the way.
Yeah.
The actual Playboy character in this, Jimmy Webb, who's hitting on Diana. that's an Easter egg because Lee Falk originally decided the Phantom's name was going to be Jimmy Webb and he was going to be a Playboy. And then he changed it to Kit Walker at the last minute. Also, the Phantom was almost the Gray Ghost because he's like, man, I don't know, Phantom of the Opera. There's too many Phantom things out there. So it was almost the Gray Ghost with the alter ego of Jimmy Webb.
And of course,
Jimmy Wells. Sorry, Jimmy Wells. Not Jimmy Webb, the songwriter. But
the Gray Ghost then ends up as an Easter egg in Batman the Animated Series.
And the guy who wrote Wichita Lineman, he was going to be the Phantom.
Yeah, that's right.
He was the original
I love
Phantom.
the fact that's such a deep pull that they actually put that in the movie. Have a different character who's a Playboy hitting on Diana, who's Jimmy Wells. I was like, oh,
Jimmy Wells is a character in the comic though.
Well, I mean, but it was originally going to be.
Yes, it was going to be that he ended up just making them separate characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kit Walker was allowed to not be I pretend to be a Playboy by day.
Right.
Kit Walker literally walks around in New York just like he does in the movie, with a cool hat and.
Oh God, he just
sunglasses.
shows up like he owns the place, man. Oh, dude, does he ever?
Except for still charmingly like. Oh, right. This is Bengala money.
Oh, my God. When he hands that cab driver. Here's, you know what? Just take all the jewels. I love it.
I like this movie.
I really like this movie, too. I understand.
I like Zane. I just sit there going, like, people don't get it. Here's the thing. If this had been campy, and people were accusing this of being campy as well, this is me just reacting to people's reviews.
It's not campy. In fact, it's pretty far the opposite direction. Yeah. It's pretty earnest.
It's not campy. John probably knows this. He'll get into more detail later, but Joe Dante is the executive producer.
Mm-hmm.
He originally was going to do this with Jeffrey Boehm.
Correct.
And they took it away from him because he was already working on something else. And Dante's complaint was, well, they took out all the jokes. It was going to be a much
I have
more satirical thing.
Thank you, Robin, because that does lead me right into the origins of this. Although let's back up just ever so slightly because the person who originally back in the 60s showed interest in doing this was Sergio Leone.
Wow.
Right.
Sergio Leone was interested. I mean, that didn't get very far, but it was like he wanted to do it. And that, I mean, that would have been, that probably would have been a rad movie. You know.
Similar to Disney comics, as in comics, not just the cartoons.
Right.
Strangely, the Phantom, here he's creaky and it's all about nostalgia. Mm-hmm. If people even read comic strips, he's had some comic book runs. Yeah. But the thing is, in Europe, specifically Spain, Italy, France, the Phantom has never gone out of vogue. Right. They love him still. They have Phantom conventions. And it's true with the Disney thing where I sit there going like, what? Donald Duck has been, published nonstop and since, what the hell? Right. We moved past that stuff. They embraced it like America sent us this gift, and we are going to be. The Phantom's more popular than Superman.
It's a reason why De Laurentiis was the producer on a lot of the ones we did in the 80s too, right? I mean, these were icons, and then they would come over here and not do well, these movies, and that probably baffled a lot of these guys going, but aren't these your things? Like,
no. You can look at Danger Diabolique and see a direct line in the design of that character from the Phantom.
Oh, sure, the face mask.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of the inverse, right? Instead, he's the face mask where it's just the eyes. This is the face and then the mask.
It's, right, and also the inverse, as in he's a charming villain.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of being that.
But as you bring up, yes, in the early 90s, Joe Dante was set to direct a Phantom movie, and I have here his quote. This is a quote from Joe Dante about what his take on it was. He said, I developed the script with Jeff Boehm, who wrote Inner Space, a movie that Joe Dante directed, and I think it's underrated. Movie. I love Inner Space. More people need to talk about it. But he said, we wrote it as a spoof. We were a few weeks away from shooting Nostro, and the plug was pulled over the budget and the presence of a winged demon at the climax. A year or so later, it was put back into production. Sans Demon, only nobody noticed that it was written to be funny, so it was disastrously played straight. Many unintentionally funny moments were cut after a raucous test screening, and I foolishly refused money to take my name off the picture, so I'm credited as one of a zillion producers. So Joe Dante, not
still
his vision.
convinced he was right.
Absolutely.
Still convinced his take
and
was right.
I mean, and I guess he's pointing to look at the box office. Tell me I'm wrong. It's so, whatever.
But if it had been like and I'm not saying airplane, maybe airplane, but if it had been that kind of spoof, I don't think it would have been.
Oh, I don't think that version would have taken off
I don't think it would have
either.
worked.
No.
Yeah. Look at Amazon Women on the Moon. You tell me.
I don't. Here's the thing that's
that was
interesting
a
to me, though,
thing.
about that. I was surprised to hear it was him and Boehm, because I think Boehm is so key to why this thing works, because I don't think of him as a goofball writer. He's coming off of writing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which makes a ton of sense to then go to this. And he wrote the Lethal Weapon 2 and 3, created, I know, a favorite of Brendan and I's. Robin, I don't think we were spoken of, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
No, I was going to say Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. I think Dante had something to do with that as well.
He might have, yeah. That would have made sense.
But that, to me, is what this also is. Like to me, those are of a piece.
Well,
that's what I mean. I think Boehm was a guy who understood.
Parody isn't the thing, but something that has lightness and wit to it, and crazy, like, boy, this couldn't happen in a million years.
Yeah,
that's fine. And actually, this comic strip, keep in mind where I was saying, like, The Shadow, that tone was wrong because the source material is not that light. This is an adaptation of a comic strip that, in the beginning and still to this day, is basically adventure for kids. And I think they nail that tone perfectly in this movie. Yeah. It's not supposed. Even Indiana Jones. I think the reason Raiders and all the Indiana Jones movies are so well received is they're taking all those tropes and making them this much more smarter and this much more adult to some degree, and that is palatable for everybody. But you put something as basic as a Dick Tracy, which also hits that tone perfectly. It's like, guys, this wasn't meant to be heady. This is the Phantom. It is a rip snorting action adventure thing with an outlandish character.
The calculation that moves a little bit away from the Dante thing, and that I think Boehm is very capable of, and it makes sense they kept him on as screenwriter, is it is rip snorting fun, but it's earnest. And I think that's the thing I love about it. And that's actually, as you bring up, yes, some of the contemporary reviews, Brendan, were like, what a one-dimensional character this Kit Walker fella is.
I know.
And it's like, no, he's just pulp comic strip hero. He's always going to do the right thing. He's always going to fight for justice. I don't find that one-dimensional. I find that earnest, once again. And I think
that's again.
But he's still
good.
Zane is still fun and funny and charming.
This and you watch Doc Savage, and you see how just a slight adjustment in tone would have blown this.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think the Dante version, and as much as I love Joe Dante, I would have probably found unwatchable. Really, I think that sounds very goofy and not.
It sounds like it would have mocked the entire concept.
It would have been
of a
closer to
stuff we haven't adventurer. And then
Right.
you'd be like, oh, great. So Batman was a success because it took it seriously. So instead, let's mock that.
After they lose Joe Dante, though, they bring in a man who I'm sure would have brought the dark gravitas we wanted to this. One Joel Schumacher nearly directed this movie, which
of course been a lot more shirtless scenes of Kit Walker.
Billy Zane.
Yeah,
your friend Billy Zane.
Well, that makes sense though, because Boehm also wrote a favorite of ours, The Lost Boys, with Joel Schumacher. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe Schumacher, but of course Schumacher. It's interesting. Then makes Batman instead. Goes to the other, and that's right in the middle of these. So we end up with Simon Windsor is our director on this.
Interesting choice.
An interesting choice. A total
Windsor, Australian director,
Yep.
and he's the one that comes up with a way to save $1 gajillion on it. He goes, I know a bunch of guys in Australia. We could probably bang out a lot of these scenes down there. It's not going to cost as much. It's going to look great.
Well, he's a real journeyman guy for hire. I mean, this is a guy who, I've seen many of his movies, but he has no distinct style. Like I did not know that the guy who directed Quigley Down Under also directed Free Willy.
Great movie.
Quigley Down Under is a great movie, and actually that would be the thing that would have sold me on him for the Phantom. Of oh, there's a cool adventure movie, in a different style, but still, that's a guy who knows how to have fun and adventure. But his big hit at this point was Free Willy, which he did in '93. But that's what I'm saying is I get no sense that the same guy who made Quigley Down Under made Free Willy. He did Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
Okay. We don't need to.
The movie he made right before this, though, I think is a very weird jump between '95, the year before, he makes Operation Dumbo Drop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, weird career.
Starring friend of the show.
Dennis Leary?
Corin Nemec.
Janine Garofalo.
Oh, is Janine in that?
Janine Garofalo.
I didn't.
In that?
I
no,
didn't.
You're, Brendan, you're thinking of...
Janine's not in Operation.
Didn't she
Bill
do an
Murray
elephant movie?
She's in Larger Than Life.
Bill Murray.
Larger Than Life.
Larger Than Life. Thank you.
The Bill Murray
sorry.
one.
Thank you. Sorry. Got elephant movies mixed up.
That's what threw me.
Shut up.
She was also in Tim Burton's Dumbo.
She was.
A lot of people say that's why he doesn't work for Disney.
She doesn't turn down an elephant movie.
She told her agents only elephant movies from now on. That's what works for me.
I told her agent, no pachyderm.
Smokey and the Bandit too.
I pack it in.
But anyway, a weird choice. A weird.
Yes.
And then his next movie after this is Crocodile Dundee in L.A. So a weird career for this guy.
He goes on to a lot of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which was
actually he had done that before this, right before this, and I think that also makes sense. He also made every Tom Selleck, I guess because they did Quigley, he did all those Tom Selleck TNT movies, all those westerns.
Jesse Stones? Jesse Stones?
Not the Jesse Stones, like Crossfire Trail, Monty Walsh, all the Louis L'Amour stuff. Yeah, he did all that stuff, which makes sense. Like I said, they had done...
again, let's move past his IMDb. He did a fine job.
No, that's the thing. I think this movie is great. Like I said, I think it's beautifully shot. I think the action is well handled. I think he gets performances.
It's gorgeous to look at. They nailed the period really well.
Yep.
I mean, the set
pacing
designs
is great. Pacing is just really
actually.
What?
No.
Oh, I think this is extremely well paced.
No, I think that some of the that it could have zipped a little bit more. I think that there's some stuff that wants to be like dun 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 dun, dun but it goes on too long. There are bits, especially in some of the action scenes, I'm like, trim. There's some stupid things like the side thing into the zoo for half a second, and then it's like
I liked
that was unnecessary, and it slowed down this chase.
Well, they cut out a fight with a lion, so
they probably did.
Yeah, that's.
But I love him.
That absolutely is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I liked him. Standing next to the tiger that's totally accepting of him. So I mean, there are things when I was watching, I was like going, I kind of get where they're saying that it has the action beats, but it's not. It doesn't move as well as it could. I think editing is a problem.
That's oddly not a problem for me.
Okay,
not a problem for me either. That was one of my big notes. I was happy
I'll tell you where the problem is. There's one glaring massive problem at the center of this movie.
Okay, wait a second.
It's Christy Swanson. She's terrible in this movie.
Actually, I don't agree.
Are you fucking kidding? Really?
I can watch her.
She's atrocious in this thing.
I think this is probably one of the, if not the best thing she did. She's incredibly limited as an actress, but she hits the.
I can't believe what I'm hearing.
Yeah, John.
She works in this. She's not called upon to be anything else. I think John is also her legacy, if you can call it that, is very tainted by the person she has become.
But also she doesn't. One of the biggest things is she absolutely reads as a 90s girl in this. She never reads as a 1930s lady to me for a single. Wow. That's always been the glaring problem in this movie to me. I think
one thing she's made, they did make some changes to source material in a good way, which is Diana Palmer
not a
in the
damsel in
comic strips
distress,
is very much
necessarily.
damsel in distress, and here
Yeah,
they
yeah,
made
yeah.
her, she is an adventurer herself, and
two-fisted. Yeah,
two-fisted.
I have
She
no
looks
issue with
great in
that.
the period hair. I don't think that
Wow.
she's acting like a 90s person.
Man.
John, I'm not saying she deserved an Oscar, but she hits this
Yeah,
fine, and especially
no, John,
when
please
you
hear
have
me
a
on
much
this.
better
She's no
actress.
Karen Allen. To
Well,
your
no,
point,
God,
Karen
no, of
Allen.
course not.
But when you
But
get Catherine Zeta-Jones,
That
who we know is
hurts her a
much
lot,
better
too. Yeah.
an actress,
Yeah.
she's playing at the same tone, and so
Yeah.
therefore
No,
I think that
Catherine,
pairing
I think,
is
is
pretty good, actually.
Oh, wow. See, that's the thing where I think she really suffers in comparison. I'm going, Catherine Zeta-Jones is amazing in this, and of course, is
I don't
even
think
better
she's
used in
amazing in
Zorro.
this.
where
She
you were coming
fits the
from was
thing.
not so
She
much you think Christy Swanson's Kevin Sorbo now, but or Dean Cain.
Lord, no.
But,
Well, she is, but that, yeah.
But I think that you're watching this through the eyes of somebody who's just looking at Catherine Zeta-Jones and going, she's so good. She's really good.
She is. But again, she's not given too much to.
But
here's what I.
But that's kind of why she's so good in it. Is because
Here's
she brings
something
a lot
I
to it.
appreciate about all of these people, and we've got to talk about Treat Williams at some point.
Well,
all these people
that's...
are given material that is paper thin, but purposefully so. What's great is everybody takes it up, including, of course, our hero. That stuff, again, something I'll take issue with some of the reviewers saying that Zane seems to just be smirking through the whole thing like there's never any jeopardy in the stakes.
I don't see
and I'm
that
sitting there
at
going,
all.
holy crap, the thing on the bridge where he is very concerned, but he's trying to keep the kid calm by like going, not a problem, we got this. But you can see it in his eyes. He's like going, how the hell do I? The stakes are fine when he's in the elevator and he's like, whoa. Oh, that's a human superhero.
I think he does. Anyway, I think he does a lot to make this guy heroic but human.
When he almost falls off the plane.
Yes. Treat Williams takes a real stock, villain role, and
a very Lex Luthor,
guy, but he fills it with so much life, and it's just he's a delight.
This kind of he is. What if Jimmy Olsen were a power mad billionaire? Energy to it because everything's just like, this is incredible. Oh my god!
And that's what's great.
I knew it would be great, but I can't believe how amazing this is.
The sheer joy that Treat Williams in every single moment.
No
one is happier to be in this movie than Treat Williams. And it shows in every line read. And that works, as we talk, it works for the character, who is a guy who is, power mad, and specifically for supernatural power to be like, man. I mean, his death scene, when he dies, he literally dies going,
Well, he's saying this is fantastic, or some line like that.
It's actually very close to...
on
Indiana Jones of "It's beautiful."
It's in that vein where it's just
but Treat Williams sets that up by having this energy of the whole time through.
Even when he does literal mustache twirling things like the needles in the in the microscope.
That's one of the things.
It's a great bit though.
It's a great bit.
Wire in the microscope,
and then he goes, "I guess you won't be needing these anymore," and snaps the glasses, and it's just like, God.
That's one of the moments that stuck with me.
In this, and it's just, and it works perfectly for this character to kind of offset him from. He's not a sing pirate. He's not. He's not a mafiosa, and he's not Kit Walker.
Right.
This is what he is.
Talking about the mafiosa, the scene in the board meeting where the one mob boss is just like, "This is getting too crazy for." And he's like, "That's fine," and then he just turns around and hucks a spear into the guy, and everybody's just like.
And then he looks at the guy's brother. Yeah. And he goes, "Hey, you're the boss of all bosses now." And
you should thank me for throwing a spear into your brother.
So, I mean, John, you're totally. We say this all the time. Anytime we disagree with each other, your views on Christy Swanson's performance in this are totally legit.
I think
she doesn't take me out, and this is probably the best that she'll ever be because she's not good.
No,
she's not a good actress in general.
I'm trying to think if I actually disagree with, is this the best she's... This might still be... I still think she's terrible.
I mean,
but
she
might still be
okay in Buffy. You know, she's okay.
She's okay in Buffy, but I think we both said that, like, well, but why is Hilary Swank the like other friend in that? There's other better... Once again, it's another thing where it's like, she's terrible in Wes Craven's Deadly Friend, which is about the only other thing I can think of that I've really seen her in.
But she's also in this... it is the look they nail really well, and
I think
the blonde brunette
design
thing where you have, I mean, because she is a beautiful woman, whether or not we like her as an actress.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's obviously.
So the idea of like Phantom has these two temptresses. One is going to be the love of his life, and it's the blonde he's known since he was a youngster, but also the femme fatale, who, you know, Catherine Zeta-Jones every time she comes on screen, and this is her right at the peak, or right as she's starting. Everyone's just like,
2 years later
they take the thing off and she whips the hair around. You're like, holy God.
I said what's so interesting is that literally 2 years later she's...
Are you kidding me with this?
Better used in an even better pulp movie, which is Zorro. It's so interesting that it's just like they were just like, I have no doubt they saw the Phantom and went, oh, you just move her over here and make her the main girl in Zorro.
Can't she do anything approaching a Spanish accent? Great.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Although supposedly for Zorro, it wasn't seeing her in the Phantom; it was seeing her in a Titanic TV movie. That, that made Spielberg kind of... We ought to consider her. She looks right.
We should briefly touch on who was the runner-up for the Phantom role in this, because it came down to, and if you've read his memoir, which of course I have,
Dana Carvey.
Yeah, Dana. It was Zane or Carvey. No,
Ray Milland.
Of course it was Bruce Campbell. It came down to Zane or Bruce Campbell, and Bruce Campbell really wanted this. And I'm sure Bruce Campbell would have been great. I
think it would have been greater though in what Joe Dante had in mind. I mean, I think that when you consider that that's where the casting was coming up for.
Yeah. Well, and obviously he had just done Briscoe County with Bohm. So I mean, it's almost surprising he didn't get it. I mean, in some ways, and actually, having read his book, he was pretty surprised he didn't get it. But he was in. Yeah. He's in the running for a lot of these. He auditions for Schumacher's Batman. He was like, we've talked about. Bruce Campbell was always a guy on the fringe of like, could this be like a leading man guy? And Hollywood always said no.
There is the ludicrousness of... He is handsome in a particular way that weirdly lends itself to comedy because he's got that chin, which he mocks all the time. But it's like a chin's could kill.
He works in period stuff. You think about him in like Hudsucker Proxy or in Briscoe County.
My God,
well, but those are all with a comedy twist. So I mean, again, he has comedic energy that doesn't read as if he were deadly serious, because even for the 4 seconds he's in Darkman at the very end and turns around and he's being the new face of Darkman for half a second, you sit there going like, well, that's Bruce Campbell. He's about to do something wacky the second they say cut.
He's going to get hit by a car.
I don't think he was...
He's crossing the street.
I don't think
he's going to get hit by a car.
The thing I always say with him is I don't know, because they never really let him do it. You know what I mean?
They never really let him do it. True.
I'll give you a for instance, John, to your point.
Yeah.
Burn Notice.
Oh yeah, which I love.
Bruce Campbell in both the TV show and the TV movie that focused on his character.
Fall of Sam Axe.
He showed an incredible amount of range.
Yes.
So to your point, yeah, maybe he could have been a really good.
I'm not.
Phantom.
Once again, I love Zane in this. I'm not saying it would have been better.
I get why he was the front runner for a Dante.
Phantom. Well, like I said, I think with him, it's always a matter of he got pigeonholed. Not that he didn't have the skill set, of course. Is that it's and he was so very good at doing a thing that almost nobody else could do, which is what he does in those Raimi movies, right? Of being an action hero leading man who's also a Three Stooges character. Almost nobody else in the world. Idiot. Yeah, I can't think of anyone else who has ever pulled that off as well as, it's a very specific thing. But no, I think, like I said, and Zane and Brendan, as you often talk about, and we're talking about last night as you were about to go watch this movie, Zane put the work in here. According to the Wikipedia, he trained for a year and a half to get into Phantom shape. And of course, the anecdote from this always was that the Phantom suit, the costume they made originally, had Batman-like muscles built into it that they had to take out because he actually just got into this kind of shape.
Yeah, he's insanely physically perfect.
Yeah.
For this character,
and
so no padding.
And guys,
needed.
we haven't even talked about, like, one thing I kept picking up on was not just that physically and acting wise, he's so solid in this, but also the fight choreography is this odd sort of fluid, poetic thing that he does against various bad guys. He has this kind of weird balletic movement that he does that is really interesting. And I know it must have been the choreographer as much as him, but still, he executes.
Oh,
and,
you really get the sense,
and the stunt team.
One of the big bummers of this, of course, is that it was such a financial failure, because they had him signed up for 2 more. And you get the feeling this is a guy who goes, this is it. This is the one. This is going to be the thing that takes me to the leading man.
The thing that I just love about the way he did this is he obviously, this is an actor we've seen go pretty broad. Because when he needs to be.
Well, I mean, just a few years later in Titanic.
Demon Knight? Brendan, are you talking about Demon Knight?
Demon Knight, but I'm talking about even in Titanic a couple years later,
where he's a little bit of a mustache twirler as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But
there's a clip on him on YouTube from like a Today Show from a few years ago, and he goes, Rose would have totally come back to me eventually.
But the thing here of he is, because I mentioned that sort of human quality to, he's doing his best, and his best is quite good, but at the same time there's a vulnerability that he exudes. It's really nice, and the humanness of like he's got his Alfred Guron in the Skull Cave, and that could have been just sort of like, yes, would you put this book back? No. I mean, there's dialogue there that he didn't write, but he just plays it well. You get the idea. Yeah, no, that's his buddy too. Yeah, it's great. Where he's like going, "Hey, what are you listening to? Is it that radio show you like?" You know, that whole thing is like going, "Oh, it's a serious message. Okay, tell me about it." And there's that sort of wink, like, "Yeah, we're buddies." And I just all the charm he does.
That's
where like when Diana goes, "Your dog's a wolf," and he goes, "I know."
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just
great, right?
It's just like Taylor Hodgson in that bit in the first Superman and Lois, where it's like, it's a sweet costume. He goes, "Thanks, my mom made it for me." Where you're like, I love this guy.
That's the thing that that's why it irks me when I see people in the reviews go one dimensional. It's like, no, there is dimension to it. It's just
my counter to that would be, you watch him when he's just reading the history book of Phantom stuff, and he's seriously like a Robert Redford or a Warren Beatty. He's thinking about what he's reading as he's reading it. And when his buddy comes in, he goes, "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, I'm just all this stuff." Like the way he plays it, it's just he didn't have to do that.
He's at work. He plays it plays it like, I'm doing my Phantom work. I've got to look through here and interesting.
And all the stuff with obviously with his father,
with Patrick McGowan, where he calls him Dad, the way he keeps calling him Dad and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like he's talking to his dad.
It's great. They're great.
And Robin's exactly right. Is that this is a character, the way it's written, that could have been played less. And instead, Billy Zane, who, you know, whether or not he thought, "Oh, this is it for me, and I'm going to be doing multiples of this character," regardless, he's doing God's work by saying, "I'm fleshing this guy out," and he's still a good guy. He's completely earnest, but there's all kinds of stuff in there, and he's that last scene with him and Diana where he's like going, "You know, I'm not supposed to take the mask off for anybody." And it's like
that's the thing. He brings a sense of fun to the character. Then that's the other thing that separates it from him just being Jungle Batman too. This is not a brooding guy.
And when
you know,
when the scene where he almost falls off the plane, it's what you don't get in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'll tell you that much. When he's supposed to be hanging on to a submarine,
Yeah.
is any scenes of true peril for that act. Whereas with the Phantom, you do see like Jesus Christ, I almost fell off this plane.
Yeah.
It's nice.
You get that in his performance, and it's just
And the thing that,
yeah.
once again, he's looking
Right.
at, and I don't know how much they, who knows where this is in the directing or Zane or the actor, or the other actors, but Treat Williams going so big, then when he goes very earnest and low and just sort of quietly charming, that really works as a pairing. If you had a guy going big as the Phantom and big as Xander Drax, that's Drax with two X's, an X at the beginning and an X at the end.
Spells it out.
Yeah, that's with an X at the beginning and an X at the end.
because he feels like this guy's a foreigner. And
Yeah.
doesn't understand.
He is very condescending to
Yep.
and
It's so-
that's very great.
really
But I
good.
also love the bluntness of being the Phantom when they go to the museum and they're like, "That's the skull you need," and Diana's going like, "Well, I know the guy owns it," and he just throws the thing through the glass and takes it.
Yeah.
Because it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm here from Bengala. I'm taking this
Yeah,
back
and
where it
it's
needs
like-
to go."
Well, or you could do it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And actually, since you
Yeah.
briefly mentioned him, the John Tenney in his couple scenes as Jimmy Wells.
A
Great.
young John Tenney, really
He's great.
good.
I've always really liked John Tenney, and
This is a
dude
movie
gets
that
the
has
assignment.
Remar in it. I mean, it's like
James Remar.
I'm not saying everybody in
Smitrovich.
this
James
movie is.
Remar. Every time he hits that, I killed you 2 years ago.
Yes,
I stuck a
it's the
12-inch
best.
blade in his back. Yeah.
And I love when because he is of the Brotherhood, or at least is pretending to be.
Yeah.
And so when he talks to the head of the Brotherhood and he goes, "I killed it," and he goes, "Oh, great! Welcome to the club. We've all killed him several times." He just keeps coming back.
Well, and I love that where it's just like, who is that guy? He goes, somebody I thought I killed.
I love it.
And he's wearing the Phantom. He's wearing McGowan's belt.
When
In addition
Billy
to
Zane,
the
when
tattoo.
Kit returns the gun belts
Yeah.
to the tomb, it's
Yeah.
just like this
All
is
is
stuff
right.
I'm sitting there going like,
This is
guys,
another
you
one.
missed out. People who don't get it, you're missing out because this is so well done for this
Yeah, it's
character.
one of those I say occasionally about movies where I just go, I don't understand why this isn't doing better.
Yeah.
Where we, as a movie-going public,
Yeah.
have failed.
This,
We failed the
film.
Phantom.
This one for sure.
We
Yeah.
failed the
Yeah.
Phantom.
I went opening
just as much as
weekend.
we
and
failed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny,
Yeah.
I got the
or my
souvenir
beloved
ring.
The Marvels.
You got the ring?
We failed them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
In the first weekend, they gave out Phantom rings
Oh,
at the
I
theater.
never- I
and
didn't-
so I
Yeah,
was
I had
there,
one.
and I
They didn't do
somewhere in a
that.
box, I still had my
Oh,
Phantom ring.
I didn't-
Slammy.
They
I
didn't
gave
do
mine
that.
to my kid, but yeah.
They didn't do that
Love
at the
it.
theater I saw it at, unfortunately. I wish I. But I do remember.
John,
once again that. Yeah.
John, I think you would have forgiven Christy Swanson a lot more if you got that goddamn
If I got
ring.
that
That's
ring, that's who I hold it against. She said specifically, the Portland Regal said, "No, don't give it to them." That's still my issue with Christy Swanson. And that stuff is I like, even though it's not from the source material you bring up, Brent, but like the magic skulls and the fourth skull that controls them is his ring. And I also, once again, Zane is so good where he's like, I know where the fourth skull is. I never thought about it until right now, but I've been wearing it my whole life. And
Yeah.
you're just like, God,
Yeah.
that is such great comic book nonsense in the best
Yeah.
way. And then him shooting the
I
laser
do
coming
feel
at
bad
him.
for actors anytime it's like, because I would love to see the behind the scenes stuff because there's
when there's no
optical-
there's
and
no
there's like,
laser ray.
I remember, and Brendan, I don't bring this up to get you on a rant, but Michael Shannon talking about making Man of Steel, that he talks about when he and Henry Cavill are hung up on wires in a green screen. He said there's a lot of trust that goes like, well, I hope this looks cool in a year because I feel like a fucking idiot. Like,
Right.
yeah. And it's like, I don't
I
know.
won't go on a rant.
You've
but
got
the rant
to put a
I'm
lot of
saving
faith
is
in
the
your
fact that
filmmakers.
The thing that failed this movie is not just the audience; it's the fact that the Phantom is not wearing blue and black striped trunks.
Did you see
on
the?
top of
Did
it.
you see the?
well,
Did you see? Do you really feel that? Because did you see the trivia that they did a costume test with it? And
No, I didn't actually
They
see
said
that.
it looked ridiculous because it's not. he's
and
not
people
really.
still mock the outfit in the reviews.
And actually,
It's
I think
guy in a purple onesie.
Actually,
fighting in the
I
jungle.
love the design of the outfit. I thought the shade of purple they picked.
I thought
the
that
fit,
they
the
did
cut.
the thing with the inlaid designs. This is the beginning. Well, not the beginning, but where people are going. The only way to make these skin tight outfits work on screen is either they're padded armor, or we have to make them more intricate because it can't just be purple cloth. The inlaid designs of like sort of a skull
I love
implied
it.
thing here.
That was,
It's not
Jim
overdone. It's just right.
That's what I'm saying. I think they
That
really.
was Jim Henson. Jim Henson's Creature Shop worked on that costume.
Oh, well, they nailed it.
Well, the other thing too,
yeah.
the mask is just. I mean, like I said, like every cut of it, the way the shape of it, that it's not fully round, it's got a little indentation by his face.
Yeah.
They choose all the right little details of it. The belt,
Right.
and then his guns are cool. They're 45s, but they're super long barreled. Like they look like comic book guns. But yes, the thing about the striped trunks, I get why they. Like that's such a comic, like such a cartoony aspect of it, right? That
I knew he would get eventually
yeah.
Specs little moment of not quite there, not quite there.
But you know what? They did try it. They said they did shoot a screen test.
I didn't care because actually the costume has changed often, even in the comics and comic strips.
Yeah.
He actually did start out gray. Purple came later.
Right.
So Gray Ghost was actually kind of.
And like I said, I think
appropriate.
this is a perfect. Right. We talk a lot about them muting the colors in comic book stuff. I think the shade of purple they picked here, perfect. It's darker, but it's still distinctly purple. It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not embarrassed to me making a Phantom movie.
No, and in fact,
that's always the thing I feel about modern superhero movies.
That is the big, well, not less so now.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and they don't do a big song and dance about we chose purple because purple is a royal color.
Yeah.
And it's the royal color of the tribe, and that means that you're a part of the tribe. You know, they don't do any kind of justification
and then,
for color.
On that same note of his,
of
his same look. Great hairpiece on Mr. Zane. Great piece.
Very good one.
Really good Billy Zane
really
hairpiece.
good, because of course we know Billy Zane, I think, never grew hair. Is that right? Like, I don't think I've ever seen Billy Zane not totally bald.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that.
Like, I remember seeing him, like, even
must have gone bald very young.
Yeah,
young.
he's had the
he's
fully
wearing
clean
a wig
shaven
in
head.
Twin Peaks.
Yeah, he's
and which is the first time I saw him in anything. And
like a couple years before this, he's in. Do you remember the movie Only You with Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr.?
Oh Jesus!
There's
there's
a whole thing. There's a whole bit in that movie where Marissa Tomei meets him, and he's this hunky guy, and then his wig gets pulled off, and he's bald. And that was probably 4 to 5 years before this. But they do a bit in that he's a bald guy. So that's where I'm.
Wow.
He's always been wearing a piece. I think he's wearing a piece in Dead Calm. You know, I mean, which was kind of the big thing he had done before this that got him like attention.
Yeah,
and he's
that
great.
was.
He's great in Dead Calm.
Someone else came out of that movie?
No, just him.
Yeah, it was only Billy Zane.
And of course, the other
The
thing,
boat, Brendan, the boat.
Oh,
the boat went on to do a
Famously,
lot of stuff.
he now that you know him, when you go back and watch Back to the Future, you can also just see him as part of Biff's gang. And he has maybe a line, but he's just there. And because he's famous, you're like, Billy Zane's back there.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything, but
handsome young man with a
your friend
toupee.
Billy Zane.
Yeah, do you think Biff just keeps keeping him down, like that guy can't know how handsome he is, or he's not going to roll with us?
Yeah.
Make like a tree and buy a new toupee.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait, that's not how. Anyway,
but yeah.
Well, let me bring up a couple of things. I'm stunned that Brennan didn't bring up more about the rings and the explanation that like literally once a month they would drop this in the comic strip.
Yeah.
You know, he hits him with a skull ring and it leaves a tattoo. It's like it's supposed to be like ink on the ring, a special tribal ink.
Yes.
That it tattoos the skull onto their face permanently,
marking an enemy
as an enemy of the Phantom.
Yes.
And then in the panel, usually the criminal, the example criminal that they says,
criminal,
it won't come off.
It won't come off.
Framing it into the viewer's POV.
Yeah.
And then the little caption below just goes, "It never will."
It never will.
Well,
one
and
of
the
best
introduction of
things
that
Paul
here
ever did.
when they're in the jungle and all the I will say, the beginning of the movie does feel very Indiana Jones when you have these guys in the truck through the
Yeah.
jungle and then when they're talking about like what's that guy saying, the local guys, he said something about a ghost. And then when he goes, a ghost, and you see Remar scratch his face where the phantom indentation.
Yeah.
Great. And he's like, "What?"
Yeah, it's
And
super
he's
sweet.
like, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore, I don't
They
think.
they didn't really do anything with that. Where I think if they had done it in the McGowan narrated section at the beginning, McGowan would have killed that line of "It never will."
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
true.
absolutely.
And I
Look,
think we need to talk a little bit about Patrick McGowan, one of my favorite Columbo murderers.
Of course,
and
what
I
he's-
think he
Multiple
did a
murderers.
yeah, I was
TV
gonna say
show that
which
people
one
remember.
though? Yeah, because there are of course multiple
Uh,
McGowan.
all of them.
All of that,
them.
I agree. Every time he
I
showed
gotta
up, it
say
was great.
that army commander guy.
That's the one that stands
gotta
out to me as
be
well too. Yeah, I do love that one.
tops for
Sweet.
me.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
very good
for
one.
me, it's him playing has-been CIA spy
That's a good one
who
too.
kills ex-partner Leslie Nielsen,
Yeah,
and then at one point says to Columbo, "Be seeing you," and you know he threw that in there. You
Mhm.
know he did it.
yeah. It's okay.
I think McGowan brings a lot to this, even though it looks like he's not doing very much.
Yeah,
He's
this looks
actually
towards the end here.
it's around probably a year or two before he starts working on Braveheart.
Oh
And,
yeah, that would have been around the same time. Yeah.
And he brings this kind of wry dad energy
I do like.
to
Yeah, I do
the
like
movie.
how funny
The way
is.
he just goes, "You let the skull
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
into
that's
the
great.
hand of the same
That's so
pirate."
great.
This was actually the year
So good.
after Braveheart was 95, so this is the year after.
Oh well,
So this is
yeah.
what he did. Well, also a
It
Paramount
was
movie.
one of yeah,
Yeah.
and
But I
probably his
love-
last Columbus he was doing too. Like
I love the idea that that he was, the previous Phantom. So Patrick McGowan Phantom, that just fills my brain. But
Oh yeah,
but also the idea that
how much of a badass he would have
that
been.
he was Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh.
Oh
as well.
yes,
Come on, come on.
come on.
He got
Like,
to
and
be
he
the
would
Phantom
still do like he
and
wouldn't
the Scarecrow
do
of Romney Marsh.
he wouldn't do a lot of interviews about the prisoner, but he'd do a lot of interviews about the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh. He really liked
Man.
playing that character, I think.
I did not know
It's an
that he
awesome
was oh yeah. He did the
Well-
Simpsons episode where he reprised the prisoner.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
was very
yeah.
fun. I'd forgotten that
he
was
got
actually
talked
him.
into, but he talk about maniacal laughter like
Yeah.
we did with Alec Baldwin for The Shadow.
Yeah.
His take on how to play the character when he's under the Scarecrow mask.
Mhm.
If you saw that, John, when you were a child,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I did,
Yeah.
You're gonna have some
fucked you
problems.
up, buddy.
You're gonna have some
That
problems.
fucked you up.
For a Disney live action film, which can be a little slow in places, but still, I mean,
You know
it
what,
doesn't have
though?
the atmosphere of
When
the
he's
night
when he's
creatures with Peter
riding and
Cushing.
they're singing the haunting Scarecrow song,
Yeah.
and he's going
A lot of people,
like as he's riding.
countless
Oh,
people
my
scarred
God,
by
buddy.
Disney movies of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah,
they went hard
the
at one
Banshee
time.
and Darby
The
O'Gill.
Banshee and Darby O'Gill is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that's-
there's a lot of, you hear a lot of people talk about that. But like we talk about,
Yeah.
this is similar to McGowan, Remar, as it's similar to what we were talking about with The Shadow last week, or even Dick Tracy as well. Murderers Row in this movie.
Murderers Row.
Bill Smitrovich, not getting a lot to do, but
Smitrovich.
he's great.
Yep.
When we get to Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa as the
as
pirate
the
king.
head of the thing,
Yeah.
and
He's
and
great.
and all the corrupt dudes in the inner circle.
Oh, I
Those
love that
guys
song.
were
Not the
all
Hoople,
great.
right? All
Yeah.
the corrupt dudes
Yeah.
carry the news.
But you've got David Preval, who, if you need a mobster guy in a movie, you call him.
And he was just coming off In the Soup at that time.
There you go.
Too. Yeah, really good.
John Capodice or John Capodice is the
The commissioner?
No, he's the cab driver.
The cab driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
But the guy who played the commissioner, the guy who played the mayor, also just dynamite.
That guy
Yep.
is Al Ruscio, of course, who plays Commissioner
Yeah,
Gordon.
Everybody in it, again, it's like, oh, these are familiar faces. But again, these aren't familiar faces.
And
for
then
me anyway,
Samantha
that take me
Egger
out.
comes
Yeah.
waltzing
Samantha
in
Egger
for
for like a
one
couple of
scene, and
seconds.
she's
Yep.
killing him.
Yeah, as drunk socialite Diana Palmer's mom.
Robert
Yeah.
Colby, who plays the army captain in Bengal, and who's his Commissioner Gordon, because I love his
Yeah,
whole
I love
thing
that.
about like when the soldiers talk about, they say there's the ghost who walks out. He's like,
He
that's
goes,
about,
oh, it's a silly superstition.
knock
and
that
then you
stuff
find
off.
out he's his pal.
He
and
walks
shows up
right
in the
into the
skull cave.
Phantom Cave and is
I
like,
know.
all right,
Yeah,
here's
yeah.
what the situation is. All that stuff is great, and
Yeah.
all
No
the
smoking in the skull cave.
that's the thing that once again bums me out. Not only because I love this movie, but like, had they made 2 more of these, there would have been more of that. You can see the pieces where they are
Right.
seeding the franchise, where you're like, all right, maybe Smitrovich doesn't have much to do here. Maybe this guy doesn't have much. But like in movie 2, he's going to get some more scenes. You know, like
Right.
there's a
yeah,
lot
this
of that.
is a missed
Revenge of
opportunity.
the Phantom 2, Revenge of the Sing.
Yeah.
In this
There you
case,
go.
I think it's a missed opportunity, not like The Shadow, where the movie itself, sadly for me, doesn't hit, which is why, it's like I'm not grieving too much we didn't get sequels. Maybe the sequels would have been corrective. But here, I think they pretty much nail the source material and the character. But
Yeah.
as Robin said, it's like, sadly, the audiences weren't there for it. So we do get robbed of seeing more of this character. And I think
But having
it's
said
a
that,
shame.
it is a shame. But the silver lining of that somewhat is what I do like is this movie gives you all the flavors of Phantom you want. You start him in the jungle, you send him to the city, then you send him back to the jungle to fight pirates. Like it's giving you, it does give you each of the things, which I love when you just go like, oh, I hope they do pirates. And then, when a guy is swinging a sword at him and he's blocking it with the metal skull, come on.
Yeah.
When he's
Yes.
shooting swords out of,
Yeah,
when he's dual wielding
and then
and
even the
shooting
sword
blades
play,
off.
the choreographer for that, they gave him a little flourish when he
Yep.
swings it around.
Yep.
It's just super
Him
sweet.
using
I mean,
the
that-
guns to slide down
Oh,
the elevator.
That's the
cable.
other. The 2 things that
Yeah.
stuck with me from childhood are the blades
Right.
in the microscope and him doing that. I remember just
That's
being
so
blown away
Yeah.
by that when he puts these.
Yeah.
He pulls the guns and once again the flourish like you talk about, Robin. He then spins him around so he's holding him by the barrels.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then the way it's burning his boots then too. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And he's riding a
Yeah.
horse through the streets, like all that
Right,
stuff.
right.
is
Which
glorious.
is which they play up in when he's in the city, because I was like, oh, a horse through the streets. This has kind of become a trope now in like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and some other films where it's like, okay, he's bringing his skills
Yeah.
to the modern jungle.
Almost like, say, a Crocodile Dundee in L.A.
Yes, or perhaps
Could you imagine
a
what antics he'd get
Tarzan
up to out
in
there?
New York.
Yeah.
But it's that
One of
kind
my
of
favorites
Tarzan
of the Weismuller Tarzans is Tarzan.
Yeah,
in New York.
Tarzan in New York
I love
is it gives it that kind of, well, now he must face the modern jungle, and so you
Yes.
have a little bit of
Yeah.
that in the New York scenes. It's
So
And actually, weirdly,
It's really
you guys know that the original ending of Batman '89 that they didn't shoot would have had Batman on horseback. Do you guys know this?
Oh.
that in the original
I didn't-
script, Batman
I know
chased.
it from Dark Knight Returns.
No, but in the script they didn't shoot it. They changed because the church bell tower and stuff was all changed during production. In the
I
original
would have
Sam
been
Hamm
fine not
script,
seeing that because
Batman would have been on
Batman
horseback.
is not iconic. It's something that Frank Miller used to some effect in that one thing.
It's pretty
It's not
iconic
like
to
there
me
are a
because
million
of
comics where it's like, oh yeah,
no,
Batman
but
will jump on a
it
horse.
is the
here.
most famous one. But originally, yeah, the ending was Batman like through whatever would have been their version of Gotham Central Park would have been chasing the Joker on horseback. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all
It
right
could have
with
been good. I don't know. Burton still, and I mean to this day, he's not the best action director per se.
No.
So I don't know how well he would have been able to nail that, but I think the bell tower works.
Oh, I think yeah. I mean, what ended up happening
Wow.
is amazing, of course. But I believe
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
read the novelization of the movie, it
Yeah.
still has the horse stuff in it.
that. Oh,
Huh. The
Yeah.
Christopher Golden.
Christopher Golden,
Novelization.
Man,
which,
that
by the
guy.
way,
guy.
What a
highly
career.
recommend, and I love this as a kid. The audiobook version of it is read by Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall reads the
Oh,
Batman novelization
Batman the
audiobook.
movie?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very fun.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Ooh, and then the Cape Crusader. Ooh.
it's a little bit,
He always purses his mouth.
it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Cape
no,
Crusader.
this movie, like I said, I think it just really is a perfect example of how to do one of these. It's just that there's a reason we're not going to get another Pulp Hero, like another costumed Pulp Hero for a while on this season, is because this thing they made increasingly less, right?
Well,
and also in there,
I know I pitched the TV adaptation of The Shadow and Doc Savage and the Avenger as a wheel.
That's right. Yes,
old school wheel
Well,
anthology. But you could do the same thing with Flash Gordon, the Phantom,
the King
and
features
and Mandrake.
Yeah.
The
And
King
you would-
features dudes.
and you be able to make a limited series of each, because you do maybe 6
I need
episodes.
you to get out of my head, Robin. Get
But
out of my head.
then
And
And then they would
fair.
team up for at least one adventure.
one
then you
adventure
could do
per
you could do the Defenders thing with it,
Each of
right?
them,
It's-
Defenders
build
of the
up
Earth.
to-
Yeah, Defenders of the Earth, exactly. We're not covering it because it's a mini series, but they did in what year was this?
The
09.
Phantom 2040 thing.
49.
No, though there was that's the cartoon.
Oh, it's like animated,
Yeah, in 2009.
Oh, the live action one for sci-fi. I think.
Yeah, Sci-Fi Channel tried to do a modern
Horrifying
day.
costume.
The costume is atrocious, folks.
Oh, God.
It is basically
Yeah.
a purple hoodie with a visor.
visor.
And
I've seen. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I saw enough of it.
Yeah,
to go,
we're not covering
Thank
that
you.
once again because it's a multi-part thing.
and we're not covering the Flash Gordon sci-fi series.
No, we're not doing any of the TV stuff. Actually, we're just flat out not doing it. But yes, Phantom 2040, I did watch some of as a kid, which was actually weirdly before this. I remember being after this, but I was just watching a thing about how it was.
Well, Defenders of the Earth was also before this, right?
Defenders of the Earth.
But I mean, but Phantom 2040 was 1994, so it was right before this. And that was just the idea of in the year 2040 we meet the 24th Phantom, who is named Kit Walker Jr. And
24th, because this guy's the 26th in the 30s. They must have done some weird chronology there.
I don't know. He's been different Phantoms apparently. What number Kit Walker is has changed a few times apparently.
Shouldn't have.
Oh.
It's well established. It all begins in 1536.
For those who came in late.
Yeah,
Those
that
came late.
yeah.
All
But
I gotta do is some math. Sorry if it's confusing.
But yeah, the Phantom. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the Phantom these days anymore, unfortunately. Like you talk about the comic strip still running, which is amazing.
And just like with Dick Tracy, they've moved it up to modern day. They do that flexibly. So, but they've also allowed the character to age. And maybe at some point he has been replaced by his son. But I know that it's still Kit is involved, and so is Diana. But maybe the new Phantom is the son.
But he has.
But they do, and the DC comics were great. There was a famous run from was it Dell
80s,
maybe before that had some that had Jim Aparo in the early days, and then ended with the late great Don Newton. Rob, you remember Don Newton, who did those great detectives in the early 80s? Remember when Batman was dating the Nocturna, the white-skinned lady with the black hair?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, Devil, Brennan, I didn't dig it. Yeah,
he just called me by his son's name, everybody.
Which
the dementia setting in.
Yeah, the dementia setting in. The teenager will tell you that I often call them by your name.
Oh, good.
Oh, good, yeah.
Good, I'm glad we're
That's
interchangeable.
But when I'm arguing, then, yeah. No, I didn't dig that storyline or artist very much. I liked...
the artist was good.
I'm not a big fan, but
This was
Jim Aparo.
Was this the...
Oh,
Jim effing Aparo.
Which one was
drawing,
this? Which
drawing
one was
Bruce
this?
Wayne to look like James Garner.
Because, here's a weird thing.
Great things.
I was just watching a thing, as I said, just coincidentally, about the Phantom 2040 cartoon series. The Marvel comic book adaptation of that was drawn by Steve Ditko, actually, which is very interesting.
Wow.
Later days Steve Ditko.
I guess
I mean,
needs the money.
guy is was R.I.P. a legend. However,
Not so much.
not so much
that.
Phantom. Not so much for the
No.
Phantom.
But yeah, the one I remember loving as a kid was the Peter David DC series.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Joe Orlando
that was
did the art on that.
Joe Orlando. Yeah, that's it. I was trying to think of who the artist was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Also, I
And
think
Peter-
Graham Nolan at some point. Or he may have been on one of the other series.
I think he may have been on one of the other ones. Yeah.
The
Regardless,
Phantom has been handled by different companies, and generally speaking, they've all done a good job. It's primarily some of the awkwardness is live action stuff. Like Flash Gordon and Dick Tracy, when we say it was a long road to the cinemas, no, it was actually on almost immediate road to the cinemas and then a long gap because the Phantom had serials.
Of course.
Including one that they had almost finished entirely when they lost the rights and decided to rename him Captain Africa.
Christ.
Which is the second or third
Jesus.
Phantom
Yes.
serial. They're like, holy crap, we don't have the rights anymore to the Phantom. He is now Captain Africa.
Oy,
And
boy.
it's just
Yeah.
been
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that is the thing that we talked about a little bit at the beginning that I do think hurts. You're gonna have some hurdles to jump over if you were to try to make a Phantom movie now.
Oh
which
yeah, you
is,
jump over those hurdles, John.
which is the white.
Sorry, I got a little worked up. Sorry, I got a
the
little-
white savior stuff, the generic native characters.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing that comes up with Lone Ranger. You know, how are you going to redo this for?
I mean, the thing has always been, so the Lone Ranger. A lot of modern
audiences.
Lone Ranger stuff has always been to put more
Green
on
Hornet.
Ponta. Yeah,
Green
the
Hornet would
reaction
be
is
another one.
always,
Kato.
and it's true of both. The reaction is always, though there's a built-in thanks to the TV show, and you had Bruce Lee, who of course was way above that stuff. But to the reactive sadly can go too far, which is make the hero not that capable. Thank God he's got this sidekick who is much more of a badass than he is. That's the way they've tried to make up for all of this. I prefer it just being equal partnerships, and I prefer that. Where, I mean, it's almost like that Michael Caine Without a Clue thing, where it's like, no, Sherlock Holmes is an idiot, but Watson was the true genius.
I do like that movie,
That is a fucking
It's a
funny
clever
movie.
conceit. It is a funny movie.
And
Very
you know
good
what?
movie.
At the end, he proves his worth because
yes.
he's an ace swordsman.
Yes.
And he's got that great line
it's a
with
fun
the bad guy with Moriarty where he goes, you're really good at swordplay. He goes, yes.
Stay tuned, folks,
week,
for our
twice
Sherlock
on
Holmes
Saturday.
our Sherlock Holmes season, which I swear is coming, and I've thought about some ways
man.
to.
Without
Sherlock
a clue.
Holmes, that would go on for 4.
Oh, but I've thought about some ways to.
How you gonna format that, John?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways.
One
Structure that, buddy.
representative Basil Rathbone.
That's what I've thought about. That's what I am going to be
Yeah.
doing that with Tarzan. We're going to do one of each Tarzan. Yeah, because otherwise you'll be in the Johnny Weissmuller
You should
era
do at
for
least
8
two
years.
Basil Rathbones. The canonically book accurate, and then one where they bumped it up to the 40s.
Where he's fighting Nazis.
Or he's fighting Nazis. Anyway, I like the Phantom.
I like
think
the
this is
Phantom a
success,
lot.
regardless of what the audience said.
One other note I will say that I was struck by, and I did kind of remember this from time, but it was reminded of this was rated PG in 1996. That sure as hell would not happen today. This is a PG-13 for sure. Way too much murder in this thing.
There's a shit in it.
There's a shit in it, but
Right at
also
the beginning.
that would be the some mild language
God.
I see here. But just death in general. They're not letting you stab a guy in the eye, even if you don't see it. The implication of that. The MPA has
spear?
gotten a lot harsher.
Back in the day, you could have nudity in PG
hammer on the
movies.
spear.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm saying that but like now it's really. I mean, I was just listening to.
We didn't do Sheena. We possibly should have, because
I'm okay with not
she
watching
began
Sheena.
in the comic.
I'm okay with not watching Sheena. I can
No,
live
it's
my
terrible,
life.
but
Yeah,
the
it's horrible.
character deserves the attention. Is the thing.
Sure.
Sheena's
Sheena's great.
If we watch Sheena, then I would insist on watching Richard Chamberlain as
And actually, Quartermain,
Quartermain.
that almost was on here, and then it ended up off.
And
But it was
then
almost
not
on.
Pulp.
That was the
bonus
thing. It's a
episode
novel.
where we talk
yeah.
about Jake's speed.
Yeah, you do get into a lot of the decisions.
Remo Williams.
A
The
lot of
adventure begins.
Yes.
Oh yeah, a lot of the
Remo
decisions.
Williams, huh?
Nothing problematic there.
A lot
Mr.
of the
Bell.
decisions on this season, there was a lot of what is pulp, like what is a pulp novel, right? Because let's talk about what some other people
Highs and
thought
lows?
of. Yeah, some
Highs
highs
high and lowest.
and lows. We'll start with the highs because that's sort of where.
Because you always think about the highs. Oh yeah.
Here we
old
go.
hippie.
Here, okay. This comes to us from IMDb
You
user
take the boy out of the commune. I
Dayton.
can't take the commune out of the boy.
Never. Dayton W. Price titles their review "Simply Perfect!" 2 exclamation points.
Wow. Okay.
One of the greatest superhero movies of all time, period. As a diehard Phantom fan, I was very pleased with the end result, and a brilliant performance by Billy Zane as the Phantom / Kit Walker. It's because of Billy's dedication and preparation for the role. His love for the character is evident in his portrayal, and is one of the reasons this film works so well. Along with other excellent performances given by Treat Williams, Christy Swanson, and Catherine Zeta-Jones in one of her earliest film roles, just to name a few. One of the biggest issues I have regarding this film, my constant defense of it, is with people who don't understand or judge it because they think they know better. It's just pompous and idiotic, and one of the reasons it was panned by the critics upon its release. Critics said it ripped off Indiana Jones and was considered too similar. The Phantom was created in 1936 by Lee Falk and published by King Feature Syndicate. My point is Lee loved the final film and was very happy with it and the people who made it. Lee even went on to say that Billy Zane's performance is what he envisioned for the character before his death in 1999. How can you argue with that? The film was loved and appreciated by its creator. That to me is all that matters. Screw the critics. They don't know. I absolutely love this film. I can't praise it enough. Just amazing. 10 out of 10 stars.
Wow. Sincerely, Brendan Jones.
No. I sign under a different name.
Well, let's go to.
I mean, it just sounds like something. An argument that we would get into at House of Pies at 3 in the morning.
Well, I do love it's the very nerdy thing of the guy who created it liked it. End of story. End of story.
Right.
That holds some weight, but at the same time,
I agree. It holds some weight.
I also liked his paycheck too. I think.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Bob Kane.
Bob Kane famously came out saying like, "Oh, this is exactly the Batman I imagined." You mean is this the Batman that Bill Finger imagined?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, yes,
that's the one that
whole.
you imagined.
Bob Kane imagined the check. Is what he imagined.
I believe Stan Lee loved every single movie ever based on a Marvel character. So,
Stan Lee.
Yeah.
When he was doing cartwheels over Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. Boy. By the way,
this is exactly what I imagined.
This was it exactly. I said daredevils in skin tight black lycra. It's what I always wanted.
Get a bodybuilder, paint him green.
Yeah.
Don't let him talk.
Yeah.
Give him a sort of a shaggy wig.
That's perfect.
That's what we imagined.
That's the Incredible
I should
Hulk.
say Jack was there.
Yeah, and I think Jack
was in the room.
He walked
He
by.
was in the room when I would imagine and create these things.
Anyway,
they just sketch out what I was talking about.
How about the this is the first time I think we've had a literal reversal. That guy said one of the best comic book movies ever. Well, here from JT Hazlitt 72 says titles their review worst comic based movie ever.
Wow.
Exclamation
You hate
point.
to hear it. You hate to hear it.
I work at all right. This starts with I work in a video store, so you know this is an old review. Parentheses. I won't mention which one.
Okay.
And
there's only 5 left, so we can probably figure it out.
Well, this could have been written. When was this written?
This was written in 03, so this was a little bit before I would be working at Blockbuster. So yeah.
Wow, what a difference.
I know, yeah. I work in a video store, and I had customers recommending this to me. I regret that I paid any attention. I thought the all-star cast, Billy Zane, Christy Swanson, Treat Williams, Catherine Zeta-Jones, along with the interesting story of the Phantom comic books, would make for a great film. I was very wrong. Each star gives his or her worst possible performance ever, and the story was simply dull. I was waiting for any moment of truth, any spark of ingenuity, but by the time the movie was finished, I had found nothing worthy of my attention. And someone tell me why Billy Zane had a ridiculous smirk on his face through the entire length of the show. I thought maybe he was in on an inside joke and just didn't feel like sharing the humor. Even if you're a diehard comic book fan or a Phantom fan, do not rent or purchase this film. It will most certainly be a waste of your time. 1 out of 10 stars.
Wow.
Okay.
How long did he last at the video store?
He was fired immediately after posting this, actually. No.
Well, I
wanted to like this film.
Screaming this shit.
I wanted to like this film. However, late night in an alley, this film killed my parents. I now have vowed to fight against all films.
Here's a nice thing.
I made a vow.
One positive. There are only.
It's like what you imagine Tarantino and Roger Avary screaming about every day when they had a shift.
I will say, I listened to some of their podcasts and had to stop listening. It drove me insane.
Well, of course. Why would you want to listen to these people? And that I've said this a million times. The reason why Cinema Speculation is such a good book is because you don't have to listen to his fucking voice while you're reading it.
It's true.
That's a offhanded positive review of the book there.
Yeah.
I heavily recommend it. You know what I don't recommend? The audiobook. Thank you.
Actually, I listened to the audiobook. He does not read it.
Oh,
really?
No, he does the intro, but he does not do the book itself, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, deal breaker.
So there you go. But yes, I was going to say though, the positive of this, there are only 5 1-star reviews. So there aren't a lot of people bashing on this movie.
It's like, if you are at a video store and you recommend Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, I think the reviews tend to be 5 stars because people didn't get a chance to see it when it was out.
That's it, exactly.
It's a good film.
That's it. People who have seen it like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing with The Phantom. People, for whatever reason, weren't going to go see a movie that had Smash Evil as the marketing choice.
It was Slam Evil, actually, Robin. That
Slam Evil, whatever.
Smash Evil might have gotten more people in the theater.
In the face with the ring.
Yeah.
But
Punch Evil in the face with the ring was actually the tagline. They thought it was a little clunky. Well, let's talk about what
they see it and it's all there. It's really good.
It's really good. It's just
even if you hate Christy Swanson.
I've suffered through this a few times hating Christy Swanson. So,
again, Christy Swanson killed his parents late at night in an alley.
Yeah. Actually, she just convinced them not to get vaccines, and they died. All right. Oh no.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
You idiot.
That's my all right. Next week on the show is I believe this is the first time we're doing a reboot of something we've covered earlier in the season. I think this is the first time.
Valiant?
We return to one Prince Valiant, and as the tagline says, he who holds the sword rules the world.
Wait, are you serious?
It's 1997's Prince Valiant.
John, now this is a first on any show I've done with you.
Yeah.
And I think you'll mark this down in the books.
Yeah.
And viewers will remember.
Yeah.
I have never said in the history of the show, I've never heard of this movie before.
There you go. Yeah.
And Brendan will tell you that is rare. While I may not have seen every movie ever made, I certainly have heard of most movies.
Yeah.
I have never heard of this movie before.
1997's Prince Valiant. Stephen Moyer of True Blood fame plays the titular Prince Valiant. We also get, two favorites over on Meet the Monsters, Brendan. 2 guys we're very familiar with pop into this movie. Ron Perlman and Udo Kier.
Udo!
Is Udo... Who's playing the James Mason part? Is it Udo?
Which one was...
Probably.
Which one was...
James Mason was the knight that presents good.
I think I believe Thomas Kretschmann is playing that part.
They may not be following the same storyline.
But I will say Ron
90 plus
Ron
years
Perlman, Boltar, come on. Now that's good casting.
Yeah.
That's good casting right
Big old
there.
Viking helmet on Ron Perlman. That's
yeah.
all I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
all day, all night.
Yeah, we also have Joanna Lumley playing Morgan Le Fay.
Sure.
What?
Yeah, Edward Fox is playing King Arthur.
Okay.
And a very young, because 1997, Katherine Heigl is playing Princess Eileen.
Katherine Heigl.
Yeah, Katherine Heigl, very nice.
Very Heigl.
Yeah, this,
Heigl.
I will say, part of the reason you may not have heard of this, Robin, did not receive an American release.
I think this was a direct-to-video in America.
In America, yes, it was made with German money, opened theatrically in Germany, and then released
Dirty,
quietly
filthy German
on.
money.
And that's why Kretschmann and Kier in there. And
We also get Gavin O'Hurley in here. Anthony Hickox, who also directs. Did
you say Anthony Wilcox directed?
I said Anthony Hickox.
Okay, so is this the guy that directed Waxworks?
Yes.
Well, then I have to watch it.
Okay.
That's
next week.
That's next week on the show. But of course, if you want to hear more from us, including our reviews of other pulp-related things like The Rocketeer, Darkman, and Sky Captain, you can head over to our Patreon page. Although I don't think all of those are out yet, but you want to make sure you get on those now. That's patron.podbean.com/punchup for cool exclusive bonus content. But I think that's going to do it.
John.
Yes.
I don't want to kill the potential for people signing up on Patreon.
Okay.
But is there going to be a pulp review of Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai?
Not at the moment, but I can't promise that won't ever happen.
Since it's the 80s update of Doc Savage, you could say.
Yeah. The three words.
I'm going to put my. I'll vote for that if there's a potential to.
I'll watch it any day of the week.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, no one's. We're always talking about that movie anyway. I think everything is almost a Buckaroo Banzai episode. So, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the IP Squad. Until next week, the case file is closed.